Hey, everybody. Okay, I was speaking on mute. So Azad, I think you're a co-host now.
Yeah, can you hear me? Everything's recording.
Awesome. We're also on the Bank to the Future Twitter account. I don't know how that's happened, but that's pretty cool. So everyone can join from the Bank to the Future community as well. Okay, so we're all recording. If you would like to ask a question, please put your hand up right now. Just a quick intro. So we just went live on YouTube, and on the YouTube video, and it was syndicated across a few other networks. I did approximately 30 minutes. Always go over that 5 minutes. Can't get it on time. Yeah, so on that video, I went through what looks like the reorg plan from what we know so far for Celsius. And I compared it to the 4 different proposals throughout this 8-month journey that we've put forward. And how they compare to all of the what we know from the leaked bids as well, and just compared them all. And I put together a list of things that we should look out for as the plan gets released in order to try and optimize the result for creditors from my perspective. Of course, as soon as that plan comes through, I'll be analyzing it and applying as much pressure as I can to try and get the best result for creditors, whether it comes from Celsius, whether it comes from the UCC, whether it comes from a bidder, whether it comes from our Bank to the Future team. Whatever happens, we'll be applying the right kind of pressure to try and get the best result for creditors. At the same time, big news today in terms of ETH staking. Interestingly, in the reorg plan, obviously the fund wants to, if there was an ongoing business, staking as a service, that couldn't be done, based upon what's come out of the SEC today. So that would have caused a huge delay unless you wrapped it as a security. And our plan was to wrap it up as a security. So it would have been future proofed from the fact that if you remember early in the case, we were saying that staking is not likely to be a security, but staking as a service by a centralized company requires security disclosures. Now, the exchanges who have not been providing that, and I am shareholders in some of those exchanges, are obviously a little bit upset. But unfortunately, if you watch the video that I created earlier on the emergency broadcast, it's a bit misleading to say that they're coming after staking because they're actually coming after the exchanges that are offering staking and asking them to register it as securities, which obviously just has disclosure requirements and suitability and all the other things that I've covered over the years. So it's very important to understand that. Now, in terms of the reorg, obviously, if that is proposed to be a managed fund, then if they're not offering staking as a service, but they are taking our coins and staking them for us and charging a performance fee. So that would require full disclosure, public reporting requirements, and probably an application under Reg A or Reg A Plus in order to get that approved, which historically has been a 9-month process. So if they can't get that process shortcut, then Celsius is going to continue trying to sell off our assets to pay the staff and drag this out, essentially. So we need to be really aware of that as well. How long is this going to take? Remember, they've only just said that they're approaching regulators now. So those are the main things. And as I said, also in the docket, they've already applied to sell $37 million of ASICs. So they're obviously looking at selling off assets. They've already done it with GKA. When you combine this all together, that's like sneaking in 100 million of our assets that's going to pay Celsius and lawyers and not going to pay us. Now, that's a big chunk of the whole. So we've got to be really aware of these things. They gradually sneak them up and just get the numbers bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay. Right. I'm sure we got a lot to talk about and a lot to cover today. So, Azad, do you want to bring some people to the stage?
Yeah, let's bring on
Hello,
Adrian.
prazer, meu nome é o Adrian Henrique, o Adrian é psicólogo aqui do Brasil. Com muito gosto fazer parte do
He's
grupo de
speaking in
vocês
Spanish.
para
Could
aprendendo
if you can speak English? If you don't speak English, sorry.
inglês, entendo. Estou aprendendo ainda, não sei falar
Okay, we're
fluentemente.
gonna have to. Sorry, unfortunately it's an English-speaking space, so we'll have to take you down. Sorry about that. I'm pretty good at Spanish actually, but I don't think I could give an answer on ETH staking. How do you say the SEC in Spanish? Wouldn't know how to do that.
All right, let's bring on Soldado.
That's bizarre. I wonder what he was talking about. I wonder if he's even like a Celsius creditor.
Hello, Simon and everyone.
Hey, hey.
Simon, I've been following you through this whole debacle, and I really appreciate all the time and energy you've put into this. And I am a non-accredited USA investor in Earn, 6 digits. I've posted a question a couple times on Twitter, but have gotten no reply.
Okay.
Let's
try and do it now then.
And that exactly. And that is this, especially after the examiner's report and all the fraud that was exposed, why have not the assets of all the Mashinskis been frozen at least? At least frozen.
Yeah, good question. So my answer to that is, although we're paying extortionate fees, there's only so many things you can focus on. And from my perspective, the first focus that the UCC gave was investigating all the fraud. So they did the whole blockchain analysis. They used that to, get rid of Majinski and Daniel Leone and the insiders. And then from then, they used it to apply pressure to get the auction happening so that we could get through the bidding process. They then adjusted the bidding process so that equity could be used in line with proposal 2 that I put together. And from then on in, they've been dealing with lots of different litigation and cases. I think they have taken the opinion that it's going to take a long time because Majinski's obviously going to take all the sell token that he dumped on people to pay lawyers to defend his case. He's going to want to go for that for years. And so they want to move that over to the litigation trust. Now, what you need to do in order to freeze someone's assets, beyond my pay grades. I'm a financial innovation guy. I've never applied in America to figure out, what you do to freeze someone's assets when they commit financial fraud. That's beyond my thing, but I think that's a question for Greg Pesh or somebody like that from White and Case to answer. And I think it's simply because it would take a long time and keep us in Chapter 11 for a while. So they've got to get the litigation trust set up, and then they can figure out how to drain all the funds from the litigation trust. And hopefully, there's enough money in the Majinski estate, given that probably a chunk of his wealth was built through the pump and dump scheme on Celsius. And hopefully, the FTX examiner report reveals the cushy relationship between SBF and Alex Majinski, and we can get the examination to understand how FTX was used by Celsius in order to create the pump and dump. But if we have lots of unjust enrichment, then hopefully that comes back in the litigation trust. But my understanding is it takes a long time.
Thank you very much for the answer.
Okay, let's bring on GL.
Thank you. I was just going to say, Simon, the document that was posted, I guess the Strato document talking about the liquidation in Bitmain, my interpretation, I'm wondering if your interpretation was the same, that the 7.4 million in liquidation is in credits, not in machinery, and they were expiring in the next few months. So the way you worded it, I'm just wondering, was your interpretation different than mine? That this was like free credit money, or what else was that credit supposed to be used for other than purchasing more miners?
Yeah, I got to be honest. I was pretty busy today. I sped read it, and I did have a similar interpretation to you, but I didn't read the whole thing. So I don't think I could give you a really accurate answer. Maybe Cam Cruz or Keith or Tony or any of the other usual suspects has read it, and they may have an opinion on that too. So why don't you give us your interpretation?
So my interpretation was that's free bonus money going into the estate to pay bills because they were credits that were going to expire.
So by credits, you mean we had money with Bitmain in order to buy equipment?
When you spend money, they give you a 10% credit, and that credit expires. Just like if you go to a grocery store, you get free money. If you don't use it, you lose it. So I would interpret that as a good thing. That was my take. And then as somebody, like yourself that was involved in this process, are you aware of who the players are?
What, the bidders?
Yeah.
Or the
And or
reorg
anyone involved.
sponsors? No, I don't know who they are. I can tell you that I introduced a lot of them to Celsius along the way, but they all then signed NDAs and confidentiality agreements. We had to rely on Tiffany Fong to leak those, but I think there's an insider at Celsius that's not very happy and is leaking such information. No, I don't know. I can guess, but I don't know who they are at all.
So today on Bill Barnhart's AMA at Abra, he said he's making an announcement next week regarding Celsius, and I was just wondering what you know about that.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, I know that Bill's been involved and Abra's been involved in the Ronan and the Celsius Loans Group and David Adler. They've been doing all the work of Celsius to put together all the partners, they were negotiating alongside Salt, trying to produce whatever plan they could do. So hopefully there'll be a home for loans, and hopefully Ronan's plans will get materialized. I don't know anything more than that, and as I've said repeatedly, I am a shareholder in Abra, but I don't have any insider information other than I was working to ensure that they're involved in the process as well as other people.
And now that Sean's raised 64 million at Salt, do you have any renewed interest in him?
It's not raised; it's a debt restructuring. So yeah,
no interest, or I was just wondering if you are going to ignite something with Salt.
I'm really happy that they've managed to restructure themselves, but I'm still very, very skeptical about the yield industry. And also, you have to, from the SEC announcements today, you have to do the whole securities thing. From our side, I don't see a shortcut. We'd rather, build the staking as a security or yield as a security on sustainable foundations that we believe, based upon our philosophy, kind of focusing on the whole Bitcoin side and what you can do with ETH in order to generate more Bitcoin. From our side, I wish Salt the best, but it's not something we'll be re-looking at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's bring on Prime.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Simon. Thank you so much again for hosting these spaces. My question is, I've been, obviously following everything from day one, and seems like we really don't have a lot to say in the whole process. We are just, almost like bystanders, poorly informed bystanders. So I was just wondering if you have any idea, or if anybody has any idea, when the creditors are going to be actually asked anything, or is the UCC basically the only kind of like representative of creditors that is being asked anything? And if so, do they have like any legal obligations towards us to represent our interest and find out what our interests are, or anything like that? It seems just like that all the creditors we're just talking. We have all of these great ideas. You had such brilliant restructuring plans and everything, but in the end it's all being completely ignored, and it's just about lawyers racking up fees and process being extended into oblivion.
Those that stayed out of Chapter 11 have been working on all their restructuring plans, did similar things to what we did with Bitfinex. You can just look across the market. The ones that went into Chapter 11 are the ones that are being extremely painful. So I don't, in terms of the UCC do have a fiduciary duty to do what's right for creditors. Now, the challenge is you can take risk strategy or you can take cash. And lawyers, if they're leading the process, they tend to focus on, by nature, risk mitigation. Now, I think that there is a time and place for risk mitigation. I think it's crazy to take everyone's coins and put them in a fund and a security token. that is the highest end spectrum of risk that one could possibly imagine. So if this was your risk capital, and you only had like less than 5% of your investable portfolio, which is the situation I was in, then you might be willing to take, this is your lifetime savings on the money that you converted to stable coins that you thought was going to give you slightly more yield than a bank. Then this is definitely a risk profile mismatch.
Can I just say, like, as a creditor, I was never ever approached by UCC or by anybody to ask me what is my risk tolerance or anything like that, so that they can, as representatives of us, actually do something that they feel and know the majority of the holders want or anything like that. It's just
Yeah,
like
so
they
this
represent the creditors, but nobody speaks with the creditors in any way. It
yeah,
seems
so
like
all we got from them, yeah, so all we got from them is what they give in the town hall. But I do think that our voices are being heard. And I'll tell you why. I don't believe that the UCC was going to object to exclusivity extension. I think they released a tweet hinting that we have to just accept it. But when we really, we've had a couple of spaces where we were speaking out to the co-chairs of the UCC, and Plan C did a space, and the co-chairs were on there. I think they listened. I think they reacted. I think they went back and said, "Look, this is not going to fly the muster." So what we are saying, what we are doing, I believe does have a purpose, and I believe the UCC does react to what we are saying. And I think the exclusivity extension was a victory from the UCC listening to, and I think it wouldn't have happened if we hadn't applied that pressure. So
well, I mean, I thank
that
you on
voice.
behalf of the creditors, for applying this pressure. I just feel it would have, it would be so nice if we would have like an official channels of communication to the people representing us, rather than having to, yell on Twitter and stuff like that. It's just, but again, thank you so much for not losing your heart during this whole process. I hope, really, I hope you will be there till the end, if possible. I mean, who knows how long this will drag out, but yeah, just wanted to, vent out a little bit my
Yeah, no,
frustration
I mean,
and say, thank you.
believe me, I have had my dark moments just like everybody else. But we've all got to push through them, and that's what these spaces and communities all about. So that's why I'm keen on a UCC takeover. I do believe that UCC are more likely to get a plan through that represents the pressure that we can apply, because unfortunately the conflicts of interest with Celsius are just too great. Celsius could even, and I'm not saying they're doing this, but they could just be putting through like a bad plan, knowing that it will get rejected, so that they can then, continue this process going on for ages. So it's why I believe that the UCC have made the right move. They said that they will take over. Now we shall see next week whether the judge stands up for what we want, or whether he goes along with Celsius. That's the big test. So 15th is a really big date for us to see what power we actually have. And if it turns out that Celsius, even though the US trustee objected and the UCC objected and the heads of the ad hoc groups objected and per se creditors objected, if he still lets that go through, then yeah, we have to adjust accordingly, because this is just a Celsius game. And we need to make sure that we're applying all the pressure we can to Celsius for that. Okay, next person.
Okay, we got Dan, CEO of Recap.
Hey Dan, how you doing?
Hey Simon, very well. Thanks for having me on. Hey everyone.
Hey everybody, if you don't know what that is, that's called a northern accent in the UK. Where are you from, Dan?
I'm actually from Lincoln, which is technically the Midlands.
Okay. All right, cool. Full disclosure, Recap is a technology. It's a Bank to the Future portfolio company, and they built a technology that allows you to figure out your taxes. But instead of having to put all your data and blockchain addresses into the system, and then those companies can be subpoenaed by the tax authorities. He did it the way Bitcoin was originally designed, with privacy in mind. So you download the technology onto your desktop, and then the team at Recap can help and support with the taxes side. Did I do an all right job with the pitch?
That was an amazing pitch. Thank you, Simon. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, and full disclosure, I am a shareholder as well, so I'm shilling my own book.
Well, please keep up the good fight on your side. I think the community needs you in this. And, what I've got to say at the minute is just about, my experience of the community in Celsius around us over the last few weeks. So the ad hoc groups, the various Telegram channels, they've been buzzing with people helping to make Chapter 11 claims templates. And a number of people have filed additional claims with their bankruptcy filings. And then from a UK perspective, we actually found that most UK customers who have loans with Celsius actually have a contractual sale and repurchase agreement with Celsius rather than an actual loan. And I think this could actually be something that carves out a separate class of creditor throughout this process that hasn't been made aware to kind of the wider audience of people in the UK that have been involved with Celsius. So I've been working with a number of professionals over the last couple of weeks, amending the additional claims forms that people have used to file their claims. And we've made those changes to support UK customers. And again, just coming back to the community, we've had a ton of people, lawyers, accountants, tax advisors. They've all looked over these documents. No one's billed any time. They've just tried to make sure that what we were submitting was correct and represented our rights appropriately. So thank you very much for everybody involved in all of that. We're obviously getting really close now to the 15th, where I think we're going to start to see a path forward. We're finally going to see some clarity. And I'm a big blue sky thinker, where could all this go? And, my experience of the community and everybody helping, this could spin out into a company and a structure and an organization that has got the most loyal customer base moving forward. And, blue sky again, this could be a unicorn in the future. Maybe we can get past all of this doom and gloom. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thanks a lot, Daniel. Unfortunately, I remain a bit more skeptical about the outcome. For right now, I just want to get everybody's coins back, and then we can do some blue sky thinking on the rest. I'm not keen on taking everybody's coins and blue sky thinking with their coins again, because unfortunately, that's what got many people burnt in the first place. But I don't want to, let's get the balance right between positivity and creative skepticism as well to get this plan how we need it. Thank you.
There's definitely a lot of negativity. On the tax side of things, I see daily at the moment people asking us questions. They want to get tax clarity on what's happening in this space at the moment. I think it's too early. I don't think we're going to see anything anytime soon. But yes, as I mentioned, the 15th is probably that date where we are going to start to see some kind of clarity and some path forward.
Okay, great. All right, well, let's move to the next person. Thanks a lot, Dan. What I do suggest is if you're working with Plan C, try and get a Telegram group together if you don't think it's too late for those that are in your specific niche. That's worked quite well. There's been, grouping together people in different scenarios. I know it's quite late in the process, but maybe that's something Plan C can organize with you. Cool.
Yeah, we have put together a UK sale and repurchase group on Telegram. So if you go to the Celsius Loans group on Telegram, there's links there to it. So if you're a UK customer, you want to make sure you're getting the right representation, you want to see documents that are specific to you, there's information in there.
Okay, awesome. Thanks a lot, Dan.
No worries.
All right, thanks, Dan. I see Plan C's added as a speaker. Plan C, did you want to share anything or say anything?
Not specifically, no. I mean, I'm just here mainly to listen. I think there's a lot of really interesting things to talk about, and I watched the stream. So, yeah, I'm mainly here just to listen. I guess the one thing to quickly say is just along the lines of what Simon already mentioned to do with the judge. It's just we're speculating, right? But I guess we're going to find out like how much tolerance or the judge, or how much time the judge has for the debtor in this process. Because I mean, clearly the judge is not super keen on Alex and past management, and he's got so many letters. But you know, the current people running the show on the debtor side, and just the way bankruptcy Chapter 11 is structured, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, even though all these people are essentially, you know, going against like the UCC, and everyone's kind of objecting to the debtor being able to remain in with this exclusivity, from what I've heard from counsel, I guess, is very rare for them to not let exclusivity continue. So yeah, I'm just interested to see what happens, but at least it's nice to see that everyone did kind of object that could have objected. So, but that's pretty much all I had to say.
Yeah, I think echoing that, I think this is the real test of does the judge has to now, he's backed in a corner. He either has to back Celsius or he has to back everyone else. And I think the outcome of that is really going to be telling in terms of, you know, where this process goes next. Yeah, so let's see where that goes. Thanks, Clancy.
Thanks. Next speaker, we've got Lawrence.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Lawrence.
Hey, Simon, appreciate you and your energy and staying focused, laser focused. This judge is a fair judge. I keep repeating that from people that have prosecuted in front of him. And going based on that, we still have to be prepared for the plan book that's pre-written, that this law firm has been going play by play. And you've got to expect the worst, Simon.
Yeah.
I mean, you just got to. If there's anything that everybody should be doing that hasn't been done, speak now. Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Yeah, the one thing that the Celsius case has taught me anyway, is expecting the best but preparing for the worst tends to get you the worst. And that's the normal way that I operate. I normally operate off that philosophy, and that philosophy has served me in other areas of business. But boy, when it comes to the US court system and Chapter 11, it's all about preparing for the worst, because the worst keeps coming, and then you can only go up from there, is what I've seen.
So going based on your scenario that the worst is coming, shouldn't we be filing something demanding to go in front of the judge?
Well, from my experience, counsel has said the UCC, if the UCC can't do it, the US trustee and the legal counsel ad hocs, then I don't know of anything else from what legal counsel are saying. At that stage, we're down to ensuring that Celsius does what they said they're going to do, and we work with the UCC to continue to apply the pressure that we need to hold everyone to the fire.
Mine and everybody else's concern is obvious with the UCC and the incestuous is the nature of it between the lawyers that have worked for the law firms, between the holders of the cell token, the B series. It doesn't seem like the people that are there that aren't being paid, their voice is heard, or that they have wind in their sail. And somebody, go ahead.
So yeah, we do need to keep Thomas and Scott. I think they're listening. We still need I believe that you were listening last time. I want to believe that you were applying a lot of pressure and that lawyers, needed that. So we need the UCC members, Scott and Thomas, to continue. If you were a part of that good work, we need you to continue and ensure that you are not just listening to, the lawyers trying to dictate the case, but you're actually exercising judgment on what's right for creditors, and that needs to continue. We know that pressure is there, and we would love to see more communication, especially if the UCC takes over the plan. then I see no reason why there shouldn't be, just like this, a weekly space where you can iterate out the plan. We can share with you, little bits of feedback, and let's just do this in a way that works. And this is the process that's been working to stop all the speculation, fighting, and align creditors around not wanting to file all these motions that delay processes and just getting to the fastest result possible. So thanks for bringing that up, Lawrence.
Appreciate everything you've done and everything you're doing. And again, I think we should be making a motion, as I've discussed with you, and started riots. So I'll stop at that. Thank you very much, Plan C, again, all of you helping out. Have a good day.
Thank you, Lawrence. Next speaker is Andrew.
Hey, everyone.
Andrew.
Hey, Simon. Hey, quick question for you, and I'll keep this brief. I had noticed that a large, very, very large majority of creditors, customers had pretty low dollar amount claims. So like, for example, like people who hold $0 to $5 in their Celsius account was like over 186,000 creditors. And then, from $5 to 1,000 was almost 230,000 creditors. So I guess what I'm asking is, how do we, if we're going to be, the creditors are going to be voting, and a majority of these creditors have relatively low dollar amounts in their claims, how do we get a majority to vote when I believe probably a lot of those, 2, 3, 400,000 people probably don't really care too much about the outcome, whereas opposed to I am one of those suckers who got stuck in the I'm in the earn account, unaccredited investor, just a unsecured creditor with over $200,000. So just wondering how we can get some of these accounts with very low balances, kind of maybe move them on so that we can kind of get this process moving quicker.
Yeah, sure. So the first thing is you don't want them voting. If you haven't watched it already, go to the Dirty Chapter 11 Secrets video I created either last week or the week before. I can't remember. I think it was last week. And I talked about the concept of a cram down. And a cram down is when you can do exactly what you said, take all the small account holders. So firstly, what we know from pure custody, which is the class of creditor that's getting their funds back at the moment, is they have to cover gas fees. And so if the gas fee is greater than their balance, then they're not going to be able to get any funds back. So the dust disappears. But those that have a balance greater than gas, and by the way, you eliminate a lot of people there. But the UCC said in their objection that they're going to eliminate 80% of creditors, and there's only going to be 20% left. But they're going to put them in a convenience class, and they can offer them a superior outcome, which they are going to, and their vote can cram down the plan on all of the large account holders because they're acting in their own self-interest. So there's a real dirty part of Chapter 11 that we need to be aware of, and we asked the UCC in their last town hall, and Greg Pesh from White & Case confirmed that while they would rather not do that, that is something that can happen. So that could be weaponized against us, and we need to be ready for something like that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you for that, and thank you for the continued effort and the continued work. It's been a very difficult time in my life, and coming to these spaces really helps me. And just keep up the good fight. And finally, one other question. There's been a lot of I think people filing motions, or folks just pro se creditors just filing motions, and I think that really at this point I think we just need to maybe get some voices in front of these people who continue to file these motions and gum up the docket and line the pockets of Kirkland and Ellis a little bit more. I don't think it's doing anything really good for us at this point. I think we just need to, unfortunately, let the process start to roll through its own way. So that's all. Thank you for your time. I hope you're the best, and hopefully we can get out of this as fast as possible.
Yeah, thank you. I tend to agree from experience so far. Nothing that I knew before, but from going through this, if you don't get the motion filed by the UCC, the US trustee, and legal counsel at the ad hoc groups, then you're probably wasting time. I'm open to seeing another result, but for me, I think it was Albert Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and again and expecting a different result. I think that applies here. I don't think per se creditors' motions, or when I go to the judge in court and say, "Hey, can we buy some Bitcoin with the money from GK8?" And the judge laughs at me. I don't think that that's very effective at all. So let's kind of focus on the effective stuff. And I'm open to being proven wrong or seeing something else, but I haven't seen anything else other than that so far.
Okay, next speaker is Dan Thompson.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. A pretty basic one. I just want to try to understand a little better. If you have assets that are collateral for loans, I have assets on both BlockFi and Celsius. Should I think of that as those are going to be treated the same as the ones that you're talking about in custody, or is that going to be different? And if it is different, can you explain a little bit about what we should expect?
Yeah, the answer is you guys have just been 8 months later. They still haven't done any rulings on that. So in the last court hearing, when they tried to continue business as usual and say that they want to unwind some of the institutional loans, David Adler and the ad hoc group for representing borrowers used that opportunity to try and get some court time and push forward the motions. The judge has said that they would like everyone to negotiate their stance and come to with a solution. And my understanding is that the ad hoc groups representing borrowers have had airtime with Kirkland and Ellis. Kirkland and Ellis have kind of apologized, and I think they filed a motion and a complaint this week or last week. Time flies away. Yeah, this week. So my understanding of the situation right now is that you just haven't been given any time, so we don't know yet. What we did learn is that Abra said that they're going to make an announcement in terms of what their involvement in Celsius is. So that's an interesting development, and I think rubber is going to meet the road in terms of how collateral is going to be treated. Ronan and the Celsius loans ad hoc groups have put forward plans. So I'm sorry I can't give you an answer right now, but I think you're going to get your time in the coming weeks. My guess is that it will be treated as earn and you'll be haircut. And then there'll be some kind of negotiation and plan around how to deal with that haircut, but we'll see.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next speaker is Killer.
Hello, Simon. Hey, thanks for taking my call. Thanks for all your contribution, as well as everybody else who's making progress for all of the creditors. My question is in regard to your personal take on the UCC position. I know majority of UCC members have a lot of stake in the success of the reorganization, and obviously, recovering their own deposits. So, that's our interest as well. So my question is, I don't understand why some of the decisions that they've made in the past appear to be in support of KNE and the Celsius and against the creditors. And
do you have a particular one that you thought was for KNE and against creditors?
Well, I mean, case in point that we talked earlier, you felt that it was the creditors who kind of pressured them to support and keep the date without the extension. And why does it take the creditor to apply that pressure? I just don't understand why we're not seeing things eye to eye. Do they have something that we don't know? And obviously their lack of communication to all the creditors is causing some tension. But if we can understand at least what their tension is, then we can rally behind and support them. But it just seems like in previous cases also, and I can't think of a specific example, but it just seems like it gives us impression that they're on the other side as opposed to supporting the creditors?
Yeah. So my answer to that, and just playing devil's advocate with it, is that so for example, the decision to make the fund's property of the estate, it was like the most painful decision, but it was the right decision for creditors. And it was really hard for me to accept that, because that was like, the most triggering thing you could ever imagine for me, because that's pretty much my lifetime work, fighting against banks owning our deposits. And so that was a really triggering issue for me, but I had to accept that that was actually the right decision, and the UCC did make the right decision, because we saw in court last week the shareholders would have had claim over the assets. It would have been a nightmare in terms of everyone trying to get the assets that are missing versus the assets that aren't missing. It also would have actually ruled into this whole concept of Celsius would illegally be staking as a service right now as well. But the way around that is that they're taking the staking rewards and calling it revenue. So they're not actually offering it as a service. So it's difficult. So how do I interpret? Firstly, I do think that the UCC co-chairs need to lead the lawyers, but the challenge with that is the lawyers, the co-chairs have probably their own jobs, their own priorities. I did notice that one of the companies that was a member of the UCC actually went bankrupt as a result of FTX. So there was a company on the UCC, and they went bankrupt because of Celsius and FTX. My guess is that they were pooling together client money, and so they joined the UCC. So that would imply that they've got they should try and get the best result for their creditors in their bankruptcy, but maybe it's also preoccupying them as well. So I don't know. Whether all we can do is apply the pressure, tell them what we want, and I just wish that I was able to get on the UCC, because I would have liked to have had some influence over the process, but none of that was known at the time. I've got lots of conflicts, so I know why I wasn't selected. What else can I say, really? I don't know the answers. All I can do is react to what we're given, apply the pressure, and keep hoping that they are representing our interests and doing the best. And maybe there's things that we just don't know about. But I do believe that in my business experience, if I let the lawyers rule the process, rather than me telling the lawyers what we need to make happen, you tend to get the most conservative strategy, and the most conservative strategy is don't do anything that puts you at risk. And then remember that the lawyers' interests are not aligned, because the lawyers they can bill as much as they want, and they can carry on mitigating every risk. But at some point, you have to press forward, you have to tell them, and you have to lead the strategy. And I think one of the flaws in Chapter 11 is that the lawyers tend to have the most experience of the process, and the creditors are just a bunch of people that don't have experience. So they come in as the experts, and you tend to follow their guidance. But at some stage, you have to be the leader, you have to guide them, and you have to tell them what result you're going to make happen for creditors. And that's what we need.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just to follow up to that, then is it reasonable for us to form an informal group who can interface with UCC? Obviously, UCC holding a town hall or some kind of meeting, you got so many people and don't get a very good effective dialogue. But people like you and a few others who may have some saying, is it unreasonable to form that group to have that dialogue?
It's called an ad hoc group, and if you're not represented by counsel, you're not going to get any progress in the court. But I do think that these spaces with the UCC co-chairs listening is the most effective. And those that have been kind of head of the ad hoc groups or representing different interests in terms of our bidding process. We do get time with the UCC, so utilize us. Utilize the people representing the borrowers in different areas, because they do get time with the UCC.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. My last question, real quick. The fee examiner. I mean, obviously, attorney cost you mentioned is just outrageous. I'd like to know if you think there's the fee examiner is credible, and if there's other actions that we can take to validate, the review of these fees, because they just seem to be just outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've got a strategy on that. So if anyone's got an initiative or they want to take that particular baton and mission, I don't think it's my mission, that one. My game is the whole financial engineering and ensuring, from my experience, that we get the best plan possible, whoever's executing it. But thank you for bringing that to the attention. And if that's your particular pain point, then someone will have to take that baton and push that mission forward. Thank you.
Okay, we've got about 10 minutes remaining. Unless
I don't mind carrying on for a bit if you're okay as well.
Yeah, that's cool. We've got about four more speakers. Sorry, 5. Let's go with Cam Cruz.
Hey, Cam.
Hey there. Yeah, just one point earlier that was brought up about the large volume of accounts that have small balances. I think it's important to keep in mind that the vast majority of these accounts are people that either never properly funded their accounts, or more likely they pulled all their funds off of the platform. Because keep in mind, when you withdraw funds, you're going to get credited.
Now, guys, welcome to the Bitcoin Gallery. I hope you guys are enjoying it.
Sorry, mate. We're just Cam Cruz is there. If you could meet that person for now, we'll call you up.
Yeah, I was going to say to keep in mind, if you pull your funds from Celsius, you're still credited with the yield for that week. So most of these accounts are going to have very small amounts in their balance, and yet they're granted, even being effectively ghost or emptied accounts, they're granted a vote in the process, which likely would be voiced against any kind of clawback action. So that's something to keep in mind. As you look at this case, the volume of funds withdrawn from Celsius by far outweighs the volume of funds that remain on the platform. They have, just above $2 billion of funds from customers, while they owe us close to $6 billion at last look, and many more billions exit the platform. You can just remember the AUM was north of 20 billion. Obviously, the asset prices declined, but that decline in AUM plus the churn of funds, as people exited the platform, they were replaced with new money from folks such as myself, who took upon the deposit codes, and essentially we became exit liquidity in what amounts to a Ponzi scheme plus extra steps. And I think there's some people that have been pushing back on the notion that the examiner report did not find it was a Ponzi scheme, which is very to the contrary. She found that Celsius paid out $1.36 billion more in rewards over net revenue. So then you have to come up with an explanation for how they sourced those rewards. There's obviously none. There's quotes from employees saying that obviously the source comes from users, as usual. So we've been proceeding through this whole step under the assumption that Celsius was a legitimate organization that fell upon hard times, crypto winter, boohoo. And that's why the debtors have been given carte blanche to lead this process. There's a motion, there were some complaints about pro se folks filing motions. There is a motion for a trustee appointment, which would have been appropriate when you have cases of fraud and you can't trust the debtors in possession to behave responsibly. Like, for instance, claiming that mining that's losing millions of dollars is somehow profitable, that kept on their scheming CEO for far too long until other parties forced their hand. And you have a new CEO who either plays stupid or doesn't understand the concept of solvency. It's not a competent organization. And by my accounts, the trustee should have been appointed from the very beginning. You can argue whether it makes sense to do that now. In theory, trustee appointment could retain the counsel of either White and Case or Kirkland and Ellis to expedite the process. But the notion that the people, even though you forced out certain leadership, the residual management being entrusted to steer the ship, and David Barse and Alan Carr, who've been completely silent, it's a complete farce to trust this process to these individuals. So even if you left Kirkland and Ellis as counsel, they should be just all ejected immediately.
Yeah, interesting points, Cam. And, we can clearly see the difference between FTX with John Ray in charge, versus Celsius with the team that Alex Majinsky appointed, and people that were involved in Celsius pre pause and bankruptcy, and the degree of what they knew about what we learned in the Examiner report is a very different game. So it does need to be treated differently.
Yeah, and I sat across from Chris Ferraro for the better part of 7 hours during his deposition over the Thanksgiving week. And this man, you can look at the transcripts that were published by the U.S. trustee. This man could not define the definition of solvency. There's 7 pages of us going back and forth trying to nail down what solvency means. This was the former chief financial officer, the current interim chief executive officer. He's either too stupid to define it or too dishonest to own up to the fact that Celsius was insolvent for as long as he'd been at the company. And if he wasn't aware of that, then he's incompetent. And if he was aware of it, then he's a liar. So pick your poison. Either way, he should not be steering the ship.
Okay, thanks, Cam. Who's next?
Okay, let's bring up Stephen.
Okay, can you hear me?
Can hear you, Stephen.
Okay, thank you again for all the input. I just have a question. Probably it's going to be directed to the UCC, and we've talked about this on here before. I've written to them again, and I'm not sure if what I'm going to say is wishful thinking or not, but you have this, 2 or 3 people mentioned that with the large amount of very low invested accounts that would have the majority of vote if they were to vote in a certain way. And for me as a creditor, and I know I'm not alone, as a person of retirement age who put a lot of my retirement funds into Celsius, we hang on every town hall, we're on every open spaces, we're communicating and writing and trying to get just staying involved 110%. And then you have the possibility, and then the best thing to come along is this plan that we'll get a haircut and we'll get some of our coins back, our coins back into our own wallets. And now there's this cram down possibility, which is, well, for me as a creditor of retirement age, this is my worst case scenario, nightmare. So my question is, and I know that 2 of the UCC at least are listening, is it like a connected mandatory thing that a convenient class has to get a vote? Because they're going to get their money out right away. And can they be like a win-win situation for people like myself and many others in this same condition? Like I don't have any opposition to a convenient class, but I do if they get their money and then vote against what would be in the best interest of the majority of creditors that are left after that convenience class votes and moves on. So my question is, I'm all for giving the convenience class their funds with the condition that they vote, they opt out of voting one way or the other. That's it. You have a choice. Get your coins, don't vote, or stay involved and then vote. If that's possible, that would be wonderful. Thank you for listening.
Okay, cool. So I'll give you my non-lawyer, as Ronan likes to say, Twitter bankruptcy court answer, where anything goes and we don't have a clue about what we're saying. But my understanding is there's no way of all creditors get a vote, and that's the bankruptcy code. And so if you create a convenience class and you want to implement a reorg plan that gives the convenience class a recovery, then you can't enforce that upon them. But they could be crammed down, from another class of creditor. But yeah, I think everyone gets a vote, and then the cram down only comes when you get no vote from everybody, and then one votes for the plan. That's my understanding. Maybe Plan C or someone else, if you think I got that completely wrong, chime in. But yeah, I don't think that's possible. But we can certainly check with council that made us aware of the cram down in the first place. But I from what we heard, that can happen, and there ain't jack all we can do about it. From what I've been told.
Yeah, so Plan C's got his hand up.
I wasn't specifically on this topic though, so yeah, I can wait. I can wait in line for.
No, I've got nothing else to say on it, so feel free to change the topic, and if someone else has got something on it, we'll return to it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, my question, and I'm not sure, I wasn't able to catch all of the stream, so I'm just not sure if you covered this, but yeah, I was wondering, I guess, taking your bid out of the equation, was there any bid that you think, from your perspective, like just based on what we've seen so far from the leaks, is there any one of those bids that you would say you would prefer, or just because you've been right about a lot of stuff throughout this process, like, I guess, if you don't mind sharing, like, yeah, which one would you kind of select if given the choice?
Yeah,
just based on what we have so far.
Yeah, sure. I'd combine them and dictate the process and the plan. So I think if any of those bidders want to be involved in a UCC plan, then I'd write the plan how I want it, and then I'd find the appropriate suppliers that wanted to participate. And because none of them are really paying a material amount of cash other than to cover some of the professional fees, just treat it as a vendor and a supplier. So if Binance wants to distribute the tokens, then you can take that one. They've got a lot of experience right now from the Voyager process. I think we could all benefit from that experience. And they seem to be, doing what they said they're going to do on the distribution side. And then I'd find the sponsor to put together the whole securities part. I'd find a platform like Abra or someone else to put together the loans part. And I wouldn't be dictated by the process. I'd put together my own reorg plan that combines different vendors and treat it like a business. But no, there was no one bid that I would, excluding ours, there's no one bid that I thought covered what we need for creditors, because the Binance bid obviously gets you your coins, and then the rest would have to be covered by the UCC or Celsius or another party that was willing to distribute the equity. But you can certainly plug them together.
Right. Okay. No, that's interesting. Yeah. So definitely taking an approach of multiple bids kind of coming together into one plan, and then it's just a matter of I guess incentivizing multiple parties to be involved somehow. So yeah, that's interesting.
Essentially,
sure.
That's what we tried to do, Plan C, before the bid deadline. So I went through the different proposals. So proposal 1 was based upon Celsius being a profitable company. Proposal 2 was based upon us having the appropriate licenses through acquisitions and an ongoing business, and not having the UCC sell off the assets that were part of the plan. And that's what I tried to do, but I couldn't execute it to the deadline that we were given. And then that was the frustrating part, because we met all our deadlines. But then the whole FTX sold and all that stuff that I covered in the video happened, and we just couldn't execute that on time. And then to me, it was when Kirkland and Ellis said that it had all failed, because we then put together the final plan, which was just a distribution. But we never really wanted to be in the bidding process. We were just shoehorning ourselves into the bidding process because we weren't on the UCC. What would have been much easier is if, again, this is the decisions I need to look back upon and understand whether it was the right decision. But maybe if I had accepted a director role at Celsius, that would have been the right way to control the process. Or if I got into the UCC, then I think I could have influenced the process in the way that I think it goes. Instead, I was chucked in the bidding process, and the bidding process was not optimized for what we were trying to achieve, which is get the best result for creditors. But we were stuck there. We were given what we were got.
Yeah, someone asked this actually on a call that you recently. I don't want to belabor this point too much, but it was actually asked on a call that you weren't on recently. Someone said, what were the reasons why Simon didn't join the reorg committee, or when Alex asked you or whatever? And from what my memory served me was you were worried about potential risks, like liabilities was one of them, and then you thought you could be more influential being in the community. But I know this is in the past, we don't need to dwell on it, but yeah, anyways, it's just a question that came up.
I can answer it. The first one is I thought it was throwing me under the bus, because as the CEO of a regulated company, you have to disclose all your director positions to your regulator. And in this case, if I was going to be made a director of a bankrupt company that was involved in market manipulation and fraud, which everything that was in the examiner report, I didn't have the same level of detail, but I was trying to warn the community that this is what we suspected based upon our really early conversations, Plan C, and me unwinding the process and figuring out what had happened. So firstly, it probably would have taken Bank to the Future down in the process, was my initial fears. So our council was like, no way. So that was like the first reason. And the second reason is I thought I would have been sentenced to silence, which is what has happened to the other members of the special committee. Now, I'm not sure if that's because they want to be silent or because they have to be silent. But I would have got sacked, because I would have been on Twitter Spaces every week. I would have been communicating. I would have been pushing back. And I think I just would have got fired. I wouldn't have taken a salary, I can tell you that for certain. No way would I be taking money from creditors to do that job. That's my thinking. But in hindsight, I'll never know whether that was all true or not, but it was certainly the advice that I got. And I can't imagine ever going to our regulator and saying, I'd like to apply to be a board of this, and then them reading what came out in the examiner report and that not detrimentally affecting our business in some way. But then I was pretty ignorant, because John Ray isn't been associated with all the Celsius stuff, but I just was too ignorant of the process. I just didn't understand enough about it at the time.
Yeah, the risks seemed too great at that time, given the information you had, right? It's easy to look back, but yeah, it does seem like there was a lot of potential risks there, so it makes sense. But I'll let other people go.
Thank you, Plan C. Let's go with CH405.
Hello, hiya Simon. Thanks for taking my question. Long time listener, first time speaker here. I've got a two-part question. First one was asked and answered earlier about the collateral on loans. So haircut, if let's say you get paid out, or does it get deducted with the haircut and the loan amount? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But the second part was more around loans in the UK specifically, because it seemed that Celsius didn't have the ability or license to actually conduct loans in the UK. So they kind of reformatted it in a way that it wasn't actually a loan. Whenever you try to apply for a loan, they'll say, okay, this is a sell and repurchase agreement. What that meant was it was a taxable event. Whenever you gave your collateral, you were selling directly to Celsius for a fixed amount, with the agreement that what the loan term was, when you want to buy back your collateral, you buy it back with the loan amount. Using that methodology or that tool or that instrument, all interest was put at 0%. So there was no interest amount paid on loans because it wasn't really a loan. So if the price of Bitcoin was 20,000, you put up 4 Bitcoin, and it gave you a loan for $20,000. I'm wondering, does that change anything with how is that classified? Is it still classified as a loan, or any thoughts that you've got on that? Thank you.
Yeah. Firstly, I think you're spot on with most everything you said there. I do know the examiner report did cover the whole tax side, and they don't think that the tax was done correctly. And the reason they had to leave the UK is because of the pressure they were getting from not having the correct licenses to perform their business in the UK. And so they went from not being regulated in the UK to not being licensed in the US. So if you want to be a conspiracy theorist, one could say that the getting into Chapter 11 was probably the way to protect yourself. I don't think they, well, I don't know. Look, I mean, the examiner report says that, executives knew that there was this hole and they were trying to fill it with manipulation of sale token and enrich themselves. We know all that from the examiner report. I think it's a bit above my pay grade in terms of what the legal recourse is. One thing I would say is that there are not enough coins, and so any victory for you is something that comes at the expense of somebody else. And so that was the game that Kirkland Ellis did and played in the beginning to win, say that the tokens were theirs by getting custody to try and get all their funds back, and then everyone else was told that Celsius owns the funds if they own just the funds in custody. So I suggest, if you think that there's that particular use case, if you weren't here, go back to where Dan from Recap shared his thoughts on this process, and join the relevant group, because I don't have the full answers for you on that. Thank you.
Okay, cheers, Simon.
Thank you. Let's go with next speaker, Bradley.
Yes, thanks for letting me up, Simon.
Hey, Bradley.
Hey. The question I have is, there were a couple paragraphs in the UCC's objection to extending exclusivity that were of concern to me because they struck me as being a little mealy-mouthed. They were basically saying, at this point in time, we object to the extension, but if circumstances change, we will lift that objection. I can read sections of it if you want.
Yeah, I'll give you the answer if that's the question. You can read it, but just so you know, I do think the outcome is that Celsius gets exclusivity extension. And the main outcome we get here is that we understand that even when the UCC objects, the US trustee and the ad hoc groups object, the judge still rules in that direction, and we should interpret that in the way that we think it's appropriate to be interpreted. But what we have created here is maximum force in terms of will the judge rule in this direction, and we get to learn after the 15th. But yeah, I share your concerns. You're welcome to read that bit out if you like. But I share your concerns that this may just be a show of let's just show there was so much pressure, but we know what's going to happen anyway. So let's make it look like we supported the creditors, but in the end, they're going to support Celsius. We'll see.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that was sort of my take on it. I think the thing that we've seen multiple times here is you've got an initial no, which is in reality a creeping yes. And
creeping yes, I love that word. That is the exact way of describing pretty much everything. Is a creeping yes. Starts small, creeps up bigger, and before we know it, we're all celebrating that Celsius owns our money, and then before we know it, they're going to take all of our money and package it into a security token, and before we know it, we're celebrating that is the best plan that could ever possibly happen, and ignoring everything that happened in the past with all the proposals that were put through.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. We all just hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bradley.
Thank you. Let's bring up Natty.
Yes, yes, Samir. Hello, everybody. Hello, Simon. Thank you very much for holding the space. De facto Public Square unofficial unsecured creditor committee, as they are hearing us. So I was very surprised, but they had no choice with the examiner report output to file this objection, as the US trustee also filed an objection. The examiner report shows that the LCC was insolvent since its inception, and that the transfer of customer asset to the LTD company in the UK was fraudulent. So I thank them, I thank the UCC to file this objection. They are ready for liquidation in case there is no plan filed on the 15th. And so the 15th hearing, 15th of February, will be a big one for the loans, for Core Scientific, for the debtor. And that's all. I thank you again for holding this space, because it gives a voice to the process creditor, and it's important to be heard. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's nice to see a bit of a French accent over an American accent as well. Us Europeans, we seem like ethnic minorities in this process.
That's fine, representing.
Are you from France, or are you from a French-speaking region?
No, I'm definitely from France. So
okay.
I'm keeping the good accent. You have your British accent. That's nice. We are cousins. The old alliance, even if you're not Scottish.
Awesome. Yeah, we do have a colonial history and barbarianism and stuff to share. Okay, who's next?
Let's bring on Rob.
Hi, Simon and folks. I just wanted to address the question around the unimpaired class. I've referenced this PDF multiple times on calls like this, but if you Google confirming a plan and Kirkland, you'll get a 3-page article that was published by the American Bankruptcy Institute. And it's a great article. I've referred to it multiple times, but in the article, it makes clear that that the unimpaired class does not even need to be solicited by votes. I've tweeted out it on this link, on this Spaces, a link to the actual law is hosted on the Cornell Law School website. But quoting from the PDF, it says, Code Section 1129A8B provides that we need not obtain the acceptance of an unimpaired class. And Section 1126 instructs us that we need not even solicit the votes of creditors in an unimpaired class, as such creditors are conclusively presumed to accept the plan. So to the degree that the plan can give a certain number of creditors unimpairment, meaning they exit with what they full 100% right to their claims, they need not even be solicited in a vote. The article goes on to describe in greater detail what the cram down law is, and that's actually subsection B of the same section of bankruptcy law. And so that's also worth reading over. The cram down is largely intended for secured creditors who might have a debt. The example cited in the PDF is a 10-year debt, and the creditor objects to being paid back over 10 years. The debtor says, well, I can pay you back over 20 years. And then you go back and forth around what the discount rate is. And to the degree that the present value of money is equal or superior to what would otherwise be gained through that full secure claim, then you can cram down the plan on that particular creditor. So as unsecured creditors, and in the crypto space, it's a little unclear how this will all play out. Again, this article was published in 2005, long before any of this was contemplated, but the law still remains in place. I just wanted to call out that it appears, again, as you said, Simon, I'm acting as a Twitter lawyer and nothing more. I'm a software guy, but this is an unimpaired class need not be solicited for votes.
Okay, thank you for sharing that information. If you can pin it to the top of the any tweets you got, if you just go to your tweet, press the share button, and then there'll be, you can actually pin it to the top where
Will
people
do.
might be able to see that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, so it's still as clear as mud to me what's going to happen, but I got a feeling that this whole cram down thing is going to be our next Twitter warfare.
Yeah.
I got a feeling it's coming.
Well, we'll see. Again, yeah, take a look at that 3-page article confirming a plan. It actually is really quite insightful.
Yeah, written the author by the people executing the plan, so it's probably the right
It's
one to
not.
read.
It's not. It's Jonathan Friedland is one of the authors. To my knowledge, I don't think looks like he's from the Chicago office. I don't know how involved he's been on this. I haven't seen his name, but certainly a partner at the same firm, along with another partner, and then a law school professor at University of California, Davis.
Okay, well, thank you for joining the Twitter bankruptcy lawyer crew.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to be welcome to the bar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Crypto Crank.
Hello, everybody. How you doing today?
Awesome. How are you, Crypto Crank? Are you cranking?
I'm
You sound
cranking,
tired.
cranking up. Yeah, man. A lot of things been going on. I'm pretty sure we're all in that same boat. There was something that Cam had said that just sparked something, and I figured I'd throw it out there. With him saying that, the lower amounts for the account holders, that it could just be a yield generated and dust being stuck in the account. I'm just wondering if there's a way, I have no idea here, but if there's a way to where, we are able to focus voting on specifically and only principal deposits for being able to be to be able to vote. And if that would avoid a quote unquote convenience class cram down type situation here. I'm not playing like I know everything, and I appreciate all the information that everybody gives here, but I'm wondering, could that be an option? I mean, could it be or could it not be?
Yeah. So my understanding in Twitter bankruptcy court is that the amount is considered. So there's two considerations. There's the amount, which needs 2/3 of the vote per class, and then the number of investors. And also, it's the number that vote and the amount that vote. But then when you've got a situation where you're put into classes, and I don't think there's anything we can do to stop the convenience class. Maybe that's the next mission. I don't know. Then if everyone votes no, but one class votes yes, that's when this whole cram down thing happens. So the amount invested is one of the factors in the voting process. So that is factored in.
Okay. I'm just I hope I'm making sense and I'm being clear.
And sorry,
here.
I said the wrong thing there. It's not amount invested, it's the balance on the account. And what I think Cam was trying to express is that most people with a dust balance are because they took a shit ton of money out of the platform. And therefore they probably were just left with a little bit in their account. And so I think Cam was expressing they're more likely to be anti-clawback because that's their position. I think that's what Cam was expressing. And so they'd probably go in the direction of the plan. They'd go in the direction of the plan that would most likely not get clawbacks. So if Celsius is more likely or less likely, or the UCC is more likely or less likely, probably becomes a game theory in this process at some stage.
I just want to. I see what you're saying. I was just curious though, if we were able to specifically look at it on a principal balance, not what yield was generated or, supposed yield that we have.
Yeah, it's not yield generated. It's the balance that you have on the petition date. It is a consideration in the vote. It's not just, but everyone gets a vote as well. So there's those two considerations. Did you want to say something, Clancy?
Well, I was just going to say, I don't think we're going to change bankruptcy law, right? There's a certain way things are done. So, we can kind of give our opinions on what we think is maybe makes more sense. But at the end of the day, like, they're not going to change the bankruptcy law. So the law is the numbers you gave about having the 2/3 of the dollar amount and more than half of the total, I guess, people in that class, right? So at the end of the day, that's what they're going to use. And so
Hello?
it just comes down to, oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, I'm still coming in. Can you hear me, Simon?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure, not talking to myself. But yeah, but that's pretty much it. I just think like those are the requirements. Those are gonna remain the requirements. And then like, yeah, it comes down to, like you said, a lot of this is game theory, because I mean, if there were a lot of people that are in that smaller class that have clawback exposure, they're going to vote against any plan that includes anything to do with clawback. So I think that's could be part of the reason why the UCC, I'm just speculating, but maybe their lawyers are, kind of telling them to, it seems like they're deflecting and kind of avoiding the clawback thing. They did talk about it in the last town hall, but you kind of don't want to rile up too many people and bring too much awareness to clawbacks, because, a lot of people are going to vote against anything that involves clawback. So just my thoughts.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Plan C, respectfully, to everybody here. I guess what I was trying to figure out, and I understand, the bankruptcy laws are the way that they are. All right. I was just curious if there was the possibility of where this convenience class may be figured out, whatever range it is, because we really don't know. And it's one of those things where, like, okay, well, if you're put into that, the one gentleman said, hey, if you get paid out, then you don't get to vote. That might be a really viable option. Who knows?
Yeah,
But the other
that would
part
require a bankruptcy code reform, and we don't think we'll get bankruptcy code reform. We're going to play. We think we'll only get what the bankruptcy code says. So we think it's more.
Understood.
Yeah, I don't think we'll use this to change the law. It would just take longer than we could ever imagine.
Understood. That's why I was wondering if it was at all possible dealing with principal balance rather than yield, to be able to eliminate the possibility of, like, just some sort of bill generated from whenever somebody may have left or may not have left. Like, typically,
Yeah, so we can't change anything, but we think the balance of their account is considered. Cool.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Well, I think maybe if anyone's got a new idea based upon that suggestion, they might take it forward. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, all right, let's bring on Alexander.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for bringing me up. Simon and Plenty, I have a question, or I would like to have your view/take on the yesterday's or today's, I don't want to say ruling, but judgment about the SEC and how they view staking, especially what that means for citizens in the USA, as well as every plan forward.
Yeah, sure, Alex. I gave a dedicated emergency broadcast to that subject today. So if you check out my YouTube channel, I just talked on that topic, and it was a 20-minute video where I gave the effect on decentralization, the bigger geopolitical considerations, and the misunderstandings between companies versus the protocol. So I answered that very question, and there's a dedicated video that you
thank you.
Might want to check out. But I do believe that I'm a shareholder in Coinbase and I'm a shareholder in Kraken, but the original tweet by Brian Armstrong was deliberately designed to rile the community against thinking that staking is illegal, when the reality is it's when you offer staking as a service in a centralized platform, then you expose people to the various risks associated with a counterparty. And so therefore it is treated like a security and requires the additional disclosures. And that drives people into the decentralized way of doing it, which I think is personally a net positive for Ethereum overall. And then the impact is that this is a game for securities brokers at the end of the day. So this was the whole thing that involved us with Celsius in the first place. We were creating yield as a security, and that was the partnership. So we built the whole thing, and we've been working on staking service as a security for those that don't want to do it on the protocol. So it just drives in those two different directions. Certainly in the case of the US, I expect other regulators to either use it as a competitive advantage with their virtual asset service provider regimes. But I went through the 3 different models in that video that you might find interesting. Thank you.
I will check it out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alexander. Let's bring on Crypto Girl.
Hi there, everybody. Thanks for having me up. I just have one quick question. It might be something to do with archaic bankruptcy law, but why is it that we all are accepting that it's the price of the coins on the date of bankruptcy? Because I'm seeing that the prices are rising, and who's going to harvest this upside? It feels like we should be getting the upside of our coins and then get the haircut. Otherwise, we're going to get a double haircut if we take it at the bottom of the bear market and then apply the bankruptcy haircut to it. Does anybody know if it's a rule, or can the rule be overturned for crypto?
So again, Twitter bankruptcy court non-lawyer opinion. I did look into this quite aggressively, but yeah, there is complete bankruptcy code. When I did the video on the equitable haircut strategy, I got counsel to look at this, and the dollarized value at the petition date is the law. Unless you want to change the law, I don't think that changes. But that doesn't mean that you can't have a reorg plan that gets approved by the judge or presented by the UCC or presented by a bidder or Celsius that factors in, for example, an IAU token denominated in Bitcoin. But I think it's a very, very tricky proposition, because if you have a Bitcoin denominated debt and the price of Bitcoin rips, you could send the company back into Chapter 11, and there's no way a business can manage such a risk, which is why crypto debt, unless it's hedged, is completely unmanageable. So I think we're stuck with that. But and in the Bitfinex scenario, we had to dollarize the debt in order to make that possible. And that was one of the downsides of the plan, was that if you had a Bitcoin denominated debt versus the dollarized debt, then that would have been that would have actually sent Bitfinex back into bankruptcy in the bull market. So you have to kind of manage those things. It's a tricky thing, but yeah, it could be factored into a plan.
Okay, because I know in one of Cam's spaces, I think it was, we were talking about how we would denominate the cell token, especially now we know it was so artificially manipulated.
Yeah, that one you've got a point. So I think the cell token creditors could be put in their own class, and if you put people in a class just like the convenience class, then my understanding is they could be treated differently. And the cell token one is that's going to have to hit the surface at some stage. I did the easier strategy, which I thought was right, which is convert everything to Bitcoin and ETH, and then everyone has a claim, and then that the whole claim of the estate is contributed across everyone based upon the percentage at the data petition. Sorry if that's a mouthful. But I'm pretty sure that there are other ideas, and that would have to be factored into a reorg.
Yes, I know some people bought in at only 20 cents, so they'll make out like bandits if the figure is going to be 80 cents.
Well, many people and insiders got it for free. So for them, it's why there was always this friction throughout the whole process between creditors and those that has claims in cell token. You could see that created, and that was when I first got like a lot of criticism from a faction of the community when I wouldn't participate in the cell short squeeze. But yeah, that this thing is that most insiders, or those they have they're split. So those that have cell token are split into two. Those that were part of the manipulation, or versus those that were genuine victims that were the most. I put Plan C in that category, right? He was
I sold
one of the most
I
active.
sold like an idiot. I supported the company for 3 years, all unpaid. I don't know how many hours I supported Celsius, and I sold 0 tokens throughout the entire process. Well, all the insiders were selling. I sold 0 cell tokens. So, I mean, yeah, I got in relatively early, but at the time, there was risk in buying cell token, and it was a risky investment because we had no idea what would happen, right? And there's opportunity cost lost there as well. So I don't really look, I mean, I'm not an insider. I look at myself as a victim, just like anyone else that invested in cell token. I mean, yeah, okay, I got a lower cost basis, but I still held this token for years, supported the company, and had no awareness of any of the stuff that was happening. So I think to group all cell token holders and say like, oh, like you're going to make out like bandits. I mean, I think there's quite the spectrum of people and their involvement. I think it's a lot more complicated. I don't know what should be done, but I mean, yeah, insiders, it's pretty clear. Like if you removed all the cell tokens from, there's really not that many cell tokens even left. When you remove, I think if you remove like all the cell tokens in treasury, all the cell tokens owned by any of the C-suite or any of the employees or whatever, there's just not a lot of cell tokens. It's a lot less than people think of actual people that hold cell tokens in the app. At least I believe so.
Yeah, and then you go into the rabbit hole of all the cell-backed loans, and Daniel Leone got his free cell tokens, and then took out millions in USDC into a trust structure, like 1 month prior, that put together an asset protection, and just basically, and then you got all the people that just left their cell in the app but took out all their Bitcoin and stables, and you open up an incredible can of worms there that would probably that's the type of thing that would take you into like a 4-year bankruptcy case of trying to unwind and figure out evidence-based. I don't think it would produce the return on investment, but yeah, we'll see.
Do you think
we're dealing with a small number as well?
Yeah, I would just go ahead.
Sorry. Do you think that the best way to handle it is to get all the ad hocs and people who have an interest in it to get round the table and hash this out and present an agreeable plan to the judge rather than have it litigated for 4 years?
Yeah, that's what the judge, if there's one thing I've learned from the judge just wants the ad hocs to do the work for them, for him, so he doesn't have to litigate. And so the more the ad hocs can negotiate with each other and say, we are all in agreement. Anytime something progresses is when the UCC or the ad hoc and the US trustee and Celsius all come together and say, we have agreed that this is the best call of action. And then the judge says, oh, thank God, let's move forward. It's always the best strategy.
Yeah. Can this be suggested then, when the exclusivity
Well, the
end
cell
comes?
token holders don't have an ad hoc group. They
instead,
they created a crazy short squeeze.
Yeah, those are the people that have cell token outside the app. There's a whole different story for people that have cell token inside the app, right? So yeah, we have our group where we have kind of like 2 representatives from all the different ad hocs. Like I created a group that all these members from the different ad hocs are in. So yeah, we could figure out something with the cell token. It does have to be addressed at some point, and obviously the examiner report, was pretty rough on the cell token for good reason. But this is all retrospect, right? Like we have to consider that. I mean, a lot of people. There's a huge difference. But sorry about the background noise here. They're doing construction. There's a huge difference between insiders in the company, C-suite dumping on the community, and just like some of the most loyal community members that held the token, didn't sell any, or whatever, and kept it in the app. Like I just think there's we need to kind of not just lump all cell token holders in together, because there are different factions within the cell token community.
Right. And then just going back to my original point, if we're going to do that for sell and do a custom approach to it that gets the consensus of all the groups to agree, can't we do the same for Ethereum and Bitcoin and Matic and other tokens that have nearly doubled since
Well, that was the
the
point
date of the
in
pause?
Celsius owning the coins. So if we want to start going down there, we're going to be in bankruptcy court for years.
Okay, so we do have to accept this awful haircut, the double haircut.
The simple was just convert everything to Bitcoin and be done with it. And then once we get out, everybody can go. The Bitcoin will go in line with the market. It's the lowest risk approach. And then everyone will just take their Bitcoin when they can get it and buy whatever the hell they want to do with it. But my attempts at trying to achieve that have not been met with much success so far.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for taking so much time over my question.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's now 8:20. Simon, how do you want to go a bit longer? Take on, I think we've got Yo Dude Man, who's the last speaker.
Yeah, let's just wait till the speakers run out. Then, if we've only got 10 minutes or so.
Okay, Yo Dude Man, you're next.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for letting me ask my question, essentially. But first, I sort of inhabit an interesting or screwed up position in my position. I am a shareholder through Bank to the Future. Thank you, Simon, I think.
Please don't thank me for that. Do I get credit for that?
Well, I also am a shareholder in Bank to the Future, so I'm along for the ride with you, brother.
Okay.
So yeah, there's some pain, but I still see some sunshine rise every morning when you get up and do your thing. Also, basically had all of my various tokens, Bitcoin, Ethereum. I'll spare you all the list in Earn. The only sell tokens I have are in Earn. So yeah, Plan Seed, we are not all created equals. The sell token holders. Now, so you know where I'm coming from, and also ignorance on many levels. I am not a Twitter lawyer. I know that the judge ruled that our tokens are not our tokens; they're Celsius's tokens, but we were defrauded, or Celsius was a ongoing fraud. Is there any way that his ruling on that matter, which is kind of central to our owning what we thought we owned, can be appealed?
So I don't know whether it can be appealed, but I do know that if we owned our coins, we'd probably end up with a worse outcome than Celsius owning our coins at this stage.
Okay.
So you probably don't want to win that battle. I can go into why, but it would mean that the Series B shareholders, we'd all go into different fractions. We'd all start trying to have a claim on the fact that there was 30% of Bitcoin left, and someone else in Cell would have over 100%, and we'd all start this incredible journey of all fighting each other and getting a worse outcome and be in bankruptcy for years to come.
I trust your insight in this as a shareholder. What does our outlook look like? I mean, I assumed when this all went down, and of course we know what assuming does, that as a shareholder, that part of my relationship with Celsius would probably be wiped out through this process.
Yeah, that was the assumption that I came up with as well. But the last week, the Series B shareholders, preference shareholders, they presented their case, and I think the judge the judge was incredibly pushing back against it. He really showed his desire that he doesn't think that shareholders have a chance. That was my interpretation anyway. But when Milbank is the law firm that were representing a group of Series B preference shareholders, and they presented their case. It was a deeply, actually, if you really want to go into this, go to Plan C's last Twitter space. I think we went for 4 to 5 hours, right, Plan C?
Oh, wow.
But if you want, you don't have to listen to the whole thing, because we started getting a bit immature and joking around at the end. But the beginning bit kind of gives you what you need to know on shareholders. But I'm still working off the assumption that shares are worth 0, and the Series B preference shareholders and the outcome of that, and the judge, I think we'll know pretty soon.
And that's what we got in the offering that was on Bank to the Future.
No, we were Series A, so we're a different class of shareholder. But my assumption is you just be dragged along. But first, we just need to see the outcome of shareholders, because I think it's a big waste of time. And I think the only reason they're doing it is because they're a pension fund, and they invested a significant value and a significant amount of money, and they have to do what they do, because it's actually a managed fund. So at Bank to the Future, we have a low-cost, non-discretionary model, which means you don't pay a management fee, and you don't pay a 20% profit share like a 2 and 20 that you would in a typical venture capital fund.
Right.
We just have no management fee and a 5% distribution fee, which means that it's non-discretionary, and we just pass on all votes, and you get to decide what you invest in. And you just get to, if there was a voting matter, then we pass on that vote. But it's a low-cost structure as opposed to a managed fund, which is what the Series B investors were in.
And
so
they have a fiduciary duty to their investors to try to recover as much of their investment as they can.
Yep. And I don't think they are, from what I saw last week.
Thank you so much for giving me some space in the space.
All right, I think that's going to do it then, Azad. Was there anyone else? Or?
Yeah, we have one more speaker, Webb Ferret.
Hey guys, thank you for having me. Again, much appreciation and much respect for all you guys have done, spending your time and resources and trying to make this outcome as best for everyone as you can. Two-part question, maybe maybe a little off topic of this particular space, but now that the bar date is over with, and for those who have submitted their claims with the addendums, do we know what the criteria will be for the debtors' legal counsel approving or rejecting? And after that fact, if you happen to be in one of the buckets that gets rejected, what might your options be other than appealing that and sending it back in? I'm not really sure on that. I just wanted to see if there was someone that might could offer some insight. Again, thank you for your time.
Yeah, it's a deep lawyer question. I feel very underqualified to answer, but I'll give you my Twitter bankruptcy court non-lawyer perspective. I think that it was a real long shot, and David Adler, check out a video that Aaron Bennett posted about update on Celsius claims. It was about maybe a couple of weeks back, where there was a space where Plan C hosted, and David Adler spoke for approximately 16 minutes on the set of circumstances by which there might be something that to have those additional claims. So most likely scenario, from my understanding, is that everything goes to a litigation trust, and whoever represents the litigation trust goes after those actions, and it's all distributed equally. But then there is a set of circumstances where there's like 15 different chess moves, where submitting that form might become useful if you want to personally take up a case against Majinsky, for example. So it was more a precautionary measure around something that's very unlikely to happen, but you might as well do it. So I don't think you're going to hear much around that, and it's probably a big nothing burger, but we all had to do it just in case this crazy chess move happened. That's what I would say about that. Okay, cool. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap that up now. Everybody enjoy your weekend. It's Friday night where I am. And just a quick reminder, if you want to understand a bit about the asset, what they're calling asset share token, AST, then 2 weeks ago, I created a video on security tokens and all my experience of all the different security tokens that I've invested in and been involved in, and what lessons we need to learn in constructing a plan. Last week, I did a video on the cram down strategy and also the examiner report. And this week, I did 2 videos. One is on the Ethereum impact of the Ethereum staking services and the SEC action this morning. And today I went through all the different reorg plans, the different bids and proposals that we placed forward at different times over the last 8 months, and compared it with the leaked bids that Tiffany Fong released, and also some feedback on the likely things that I'll be looking out for when we actually see this plan eventually. Next week, the 15th of February is a big date. There's a court hearing where we find out whether the judge is going to side with Celsius to give them an exclusivity extension. And I assume Plan C normally does a post-hearing space, so I'll be joining I normally join Plan C spaces after the hearing. So I'll wrap up the way that I always wrap up. Always remember, you're alive at one of the most interesting and exciting times in financial history. I think this bankruptcy has certainly been interesting. It may be the worst time, and it may be something that feels extremely painful. I know that I've been there at some points during this case where it feels like nothing you do has any impact, but I think it was a big victory. That the UCC did object to exclusivity. Maybe it's a little bit too early to celebrate, but let's take these little victories where we can. Because for some people, these changes are going to be really bad for them. And for other people, it's going to be great. So whatever happens, whatever the outcome, whether Celsius gets what their evil plan is, or whether the UCC takes over and we get some involvement in this process, or whether the bids are all combined together, we'll keep working on that together. I'll update you as we progress. And we'll always do it with peace, love, and unity is what I like to remind ourselves. Sometimes anger can get the better of us, but let's make sure that we don't allow this process to make us worse people than we can be. And I think this is just a great community of people that have been supporting each other, and we'll continue to do that. And I'll see you next week. Peace.